Okay. Hi, friends. Wanted to share some thoughts on the coming November 3 election day and the astrology of it. So I thought maybe we could just look at this together. I've already looked at this and seen some interesting alignments. So I'll just be talking about that day, the new moon that comes before, the full moon in August, and how that lines up with some of the larger cycles that we're going through astrologically. So let's take a look. This is the wheel for today, July 27. The sun is in Leo. Mars is here in Aries. This is Mars and the moon. This is the moon here. And here in Capricorn, Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter. So these are the three heavy hitters that have been slowly moving through this section of the sky. And you'll see that right now they're all retrograde. These are some of the slower planets, especially Jupiter and Saturn, have to do with the movements of society as a whole. And Pluto is very generational, so Pluto moves very slowly and often will define a generation by the sign that Pluto is in. The fact that they're here and towards the end of the sign, you see the degrees are in the high third of the decan, it goes from 0 to 30, means that they've been going through this part of the sky and that they're coming to the end of their transition here, that they're red because they're retrograde. They've returned, apparent motion, returned in the sky, and then at some point will stop and start going forward again, which means that they're retracing their steps in this area a lot, creating extra deep impressions, which means transformation of our belief system, transformation of power, of the people in power, of government, of the material reality, even because Saturn, this is his house, this is his home. So, and he is Jupiter and Saturn are the planets of manifestation, Jupiter being the divine guru, the teacher, the mentor. And Saturn is the lord of karma and of time and of material reality. So it's very interesting what is going on here right now. But that's not even what I'm going to talk about. The other thing that's happening in this second 6 months of 2020 is Mars is doing a massive pass through Aries, which is going to take, like I said, 6 months. It's going to be in this area of the sky for an extraordinarily long time. In the same way that Saturn is in his own house here in Capricorn, Mars is in his own house here in Aries. So Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It represents seasonally the beginning of spring, and it kicks off the whole entire rest of the year. And it is ruled by the planet Mars, which represents masculine energy. It represents males and men. It represents the will that we all have, our actual physical energy and our energy levels. It represents aggression, war, soldiers, knives, cutting, separating. It represents strategy, intellect, and execution. Anytime that you have an idea, your ability to act on that intention or to execute that idea, to take physical, literal action is Mars. So Mars is also a really important planet when it comes to initiating things that actually physically happen. Once that Mars energy gets thrown in there, things happen. Mars is a fire sign and cardinal. Mars is moving this way. Now, if we just kind of go through the days here, you'll see that Mars, keep your eye on Mars, it's moving forward. And you'll see here, September 9th and September 10th. So the movement slows down. You'll see how many days it's at the 28 degrees. So the speed slows down. And then between the 9th and the 10th, it will stop, apparent motion, stop. And then by the 10th, it is starting to retrograde backwards. So it will stop, Mars will stop right here. Notice the moon is in Rahu when that happens. And this whole movement, especially here at the end, does a square to this party over here in Capricorn. So that's a square here. So that'll happen September 9th and 10th. Then again, it's slow. It's like an easy ease if you're an animator. And then it goes backwards and it starts heading the other direction. Okay. And it starts going this way during the retrograde, which means RX. Okay, so that's the end of September into October. It's going backwards, it's going backwards. November 1st. Okay, see it's going backwards, going backwards. And here, look, from the 6th to the 13th to the 20th, all this whole 2 weeks, it's at the same degree. That's at the peak of the retrograde. That's as far back as it will apparently go before it turns around. It's right here at 15 degrees. Okay. So that's what Mars is up to. And then in November, it'll start moving again forward. So that means that this part of the sky, Mars goes over it one time, stops at the second blue line, turns around, goes back to it up to here, stops, turns around, and goes back straight again to continue forward along the wheel. So this part of the chart gets 3 doses of Mars, and the endpoint here gets an extra dose because the planet slows down. As well, this gets a little extra dose when it slows down. Okay, the other thing that's going on is, since our November 3, our moon is here, about 40 degrees away. Now, what is happening? The moon in this position is coming into a new moon. It's coming away from a full moon and going into a new moon, right? Because over here is full moon, directly opposite the sun. It's now moving towards the sun and shrinking, becoming a new moon. So let's look at the new moon before the election. What's going on in that new moon? Because that new moon will have the resonance of that month. That new moon happens on October 16th at 23 degrees Libra. Which is here. Sorry for the clicking. This is what's going on right now. 23 degrees Libra is the new moon, which is happening October 16th. And this is the new moon that's going to set the stage. Remember, this is like what we're doing right now. It's an improv show. We're reading the script. We don't know how it's going to play out because it's improv. But this is a script. These are the props that we have. The costumes backstage. These are the cues from, you know, the lights, the sounds, the music. They're all queued up. We're not sure what's going to happen exactly. But these are all the pieces on the board, okay? So we're just going to see how could this play out? What does this tell us, if anything? Okay, so the sun, generally the moon represents, when you're looking at a broad, you're not looking at an individual person. The moon represents the will of the people, represents the mass consciousness, the public consciousness, the collective consciousness. And the sun represents the king, the ruler. It also, the sun represents the more of like the higher soul. In other words, the sun is literally, could be seen as the literal manifestation of the higher soul of all of mankind that beams its light over to the moon, which is the divine feminine aspect of that soul of mankind. So the sun and the moon work together to express the goings-on of the human soul, okay? They only rule one sign each, whereas the other planets will rule two signs. So they kind of work, they work together to show the kind of the ebbs and flows of our human consciousness. They are the king and queen of the kingdom, okay? So they are those who are deemed the rulers, okay? And they have a court, and all of these other planets are in service to the sun and moon in terms of they have their own role in the court. All right, so in the new moon, what's happening is the moon is invisible to us because the sun is shining so bright that it's really, the moon is so close that it's not really visible to us because the sun is outshining it, all right? So over the course of the next 4 weeks, the moon will move away from the sun and be able to more fully reflect the sun's light and therefore reveal herself, or reveal itself to us. So right now, the moon is hidden. So the public consciousness, you could say, is hidden. All right. I mean, in the same way, this happens every month, so it's not like a huge deal. All right. I get a new moon every month. We plant the seeds of intention, and then in the full moon across the way over here, these intentions are realized to varying degrees. And then, you know, we evaluate if that's what we really wanted or not. And then in the next, half month, 2 weeks, 2 weeks after that, as the moon shrinks back down, we remove the things we no longer want, and then we start over again. So the moon is the microcosm of our manifestation process, where we get in touch with our intention. And here the fact that they're joined means the moon is receiving the highest soul intention from the sun, because the sun is the direct divine light that is expressed in the world. So the moon is receiving that direct intention. It's not until she goes all the way across the sky to become a full moon that she can fully reflect back to the sun, which is our pure consciousness, reflect back what it is that she received those 2 weeks ago. You see that? So the moon is the reflection, the will of the people is the reflection of the divine will into material reality. And that's true for us at an individual level as well. The sun represents what our soul, where is our soul's, where's our soul at? You know, soul, soul, S-O-L, S-O-N, sun, sun. This is what we're talking about. So these two guys are in Libra, which Libra is the sign of balance, harmony, justice, fairness, equality. All right, this is Venus over here. This is her sign. I say her, but really Venus is, depending on what you study, it's a male. It could be male or female, and it is actually both in some ways, but call her. She's in detriment, okay? She's not in a good spot here in Virgo. But the sun and moon are in her house. This is Venus's house. Libra is Venus's house. Okay, so Libra wants things to be fair, to be just. Libra wants a win-win, okay? Libra wants everybody to feel like they've been given a fair shake. It's fine to compromise in order to come to an agreement, as long as everyone feels like they've been treated fairly, that they're getting something. It's okay to give something if you're getting something that you want back. That's the spirit of Venus, of the Venusian sign of Libra. It has to do also with harmony, relationships, and relating to others. So it has to do with respect and tactfulness and diplomacy. So it's very interesting. Excuse me. But that is the new moon before the election. Now, across the way, at only 3 degrees off, you'll see here's Mars kind of going through Aries. At 20 degrees, he is in the zone, right? Right across from that new moon, Mars is in the zone. He's in the retrograde zone. So that means that this new moon, this energy of the chart right here, is kind of like creates these spots, like hot spots. And you'll see as the month progresses how the moon is going to be touching on these hot spots and how other planets will move into these little hot spots. So that's why I'm marking them off right here. So this is our new moon hotspot. And you'll see that basically when this new moon happens, it is getting energy from this Mars. So it's an opposition energy, which means it's not harmonious. Obviously, Mars in Aries is not harmonious to a refined, Libra sensibility here at 23 in the third decan, which is very strong. By the time you get into this last third of this area, you're talking about the qualities of the sign at their most maximum development. And is also squaring all of this whole party over here as well, except for Jupiter, but generally in the third decan. So these are really powerful forces at play. And the fact that there are squares and oppositions, what that means is a square is like tension that has to give. Okay? It's not harmonious tension. It is like it's like something being pushed through a sieve. It's like etheric energy that is being pushed and to manifest, and it just has to come out one way or the other. But it's like at such an angle that it can't really come out. It has to come out. It's either gonna, there's 2 things that can happen. Sorry, 3 things that can happen, but 2 things. One, it tilts to one way or the other. Right, so a square will either tilt to these guys or it will tilt to these guys because it will buckle under the pressure. The second option is that as it is expressed from the energetic into the material, as it is pushed through the sieve of manifestation, there's enough balance and tension, and it's not an easy manifestation because it does hold tension. And the two 45-degree angles here push it so that it manifests kind of at this angle, if that makes sense, like something that's right exactly in between and maintains the integrity of this energy and this energy. And in personal charts, that is a very difficult natal placement, and it requires, some time to figure out how that works. But if you have squares in your chart, I think you will know what I'm talking about. That sometimes you have to go one way and this part isn't happy. Sometimes you have to go this way and this part isn't happy. Sometimes it's a very artful expression where you've kept the integrity of both, and a third thing is created that is both and neither of these things. It's something new. That's the highest manifestation of a square and the highest purpose of a square. Same thing over here. The square means that there's the potential for manifesting something totally new. And because it's a square, something that lays the foundation. See, because the number 4 means foundation, because you're creating the square. This square is happening all cardinal planets. So this is no joke. Nothing's going on over here, but cardinal planets have to do with initiative, active energy, things that begin and start something new. They set the tone, they blaze the trail. So this new moon is telling me that it's going to be something new. And because it's taking in the square of these 3 guys, it's something new around power, relationships, political power, governments, maybe even money. The fact that Jupiter is there could very well have to do with our belief systems about these things. It could very well have to do with religion. But any way in which we see people at the top of the mountain, because Capricorn is the top of the mountain. Whether we admire those people or resent those people, Capricorn represents the top of the mountain. And it represents those who, Capricorn energy, if you have this in your chart, you are willing to climb to the top. You're willing to get there. You know it takes hard work. You are willing to take responsibility. This is the area of responsibility. And Pluto is transformation, deep, deep, deep transformation. Power, the dark side, the shadow work, the underworld. So the underbelly of the top. You see how interesting this is? Okay. The underbelly of the top of a mountain. And Jupiter is like the guru. Jupiter is like the divine, teacher, the wise, I guess he could be the wise monk sitting at the top of the mountain. So he's there too. Now Jupiter doesn't love being in Capricorn. It's not really his jam. He likes to make things bigger and better. He represents luck and good fortune and being optimistic. But being so close to Pluto, you have to look at the shadow side of Jupiter, which is over promises and under delivery, which is being overly optimistic to where you only rely on good fortune. The shadow side of Jupiter is being fanatical or zealous about your belief systems and feeling that everyone needs to believe what you believe. So this is also happening. So there's this really heavy soup happening over here, and that's going to be squaring something brand new to the sun and the moon. And it's also squaring this Mars and Aries, which is just pure, this is just pure raw energy in these manifest expressions of pure raw energy. And I think this is, this is like fueling this and opposing and fueling this a little bit as well. So there's other things going on, but I'm going to move on now to election day. The other interesting thing, the moon is going to move counterclockwise here. And it's going to hit this point. So the moon is taking this energy, taking this impression, and is now moving through the sky. And when it gets to here, I'm predicting 22nd, the 22nd. This is going to be an interesting day. Something interesting will happen here when this energy of the people's intention for justice, for balance, for a win-win, right? Like restoring the order, but at the same time here you have this explosive manifestation of raw energy. And they're both exerting their power here, where the systems of government, of the top of the hierarchy, whatever the systems of power are, this is the top of that. Leaders, people who have responsibilities, very great responsibility. They're being transformed. So when the moon comes here, it's taking this message, the will of the people, the new moon, the new thing, the Libran thing, the new justice, new harmony. And it's coming here. Now the moon is very receptive and passive, so it's not going to impart that energy, but it's going to receive the energy of these guys. As well, in this instance, Venus will be trining them as well from here in Virgo. And Neptune will be retrograde. So there will be some sort of details. So Neptune is in retrograde is clarity, finding out about lies or deception. Details about that are beaming over to the moon. So I think the moon's picking all that up right here. And we may see it. We may see what this is because of this square. It may be clear what that is, but it may not. So it's picking up whatever that is on October 22nd. And it's going around. It's going around. It's going to hit Neptune between the 26th and the 27th. So the 27th, we could get a hint of whatever that is. Then the 28th. And on the 29th, the moon has now met up with Mars at this very crucial point. And so now we're going to really see some explosions, I think, in terms of, people's reaction. Now, something else that has happened I'll come back to that. But then we go into November 1st. You'll see that Mercury is on his way back. Okay, Mercury had passed this point, and he's retrograding back now to this point of where the new moon is. Or where the new moon was. And look, that's where he stops. 25 degrees is where our Mercury retrograde is the deepest. 2 degrees from the new moon. Okay, so Mercury deals with information, communication, a day-to-day, the day-to-day management of, I don't want to say bureaucratic, but all paperwork, all written communications, verbal communications, any kind of communications that has to do with management and running the show and getting, all your ducks in a row. This is Mercury. He represents that part of our intellect and that part of the manifested realm. Mercury is also the messenger, of course, and so Mercury's job is to relay the message. So Mercury kind of goes everywhere and kind of gets a pass in the sense of the different realms. He's got like a passport that he can go to the highest realm and to the lowest realm, and doesn't really belong to any one area. Doesn't have like a loyalty per se, but tries to stay neutral in order to deliver messages between the gods, so to speak, okay? So it's not so much that he doesn't have an agenda. He does have an agenda, but his agenda strictly is in this, to fulfill this role. So that's why when people say Mercury is retrograde, that communications go down, phone service, emails, misunderstandings, miscommunications, not saying enough information, misinterpreting information, drop calls, just can't think or concentrate, especially if you have Mercury strong in your chart. Mercury retrograde, if you have Mercury strong in your chart, could also be an excellent time to go back and redo or review or re-edit anything that you started in the past. But in this case, it's election day. And so what is election? Nationwide, vote by vote, person by person, pieces of paper or clicks on a screen. This is the ultimate, chance or show where something, Mercury's skill, is going to decide our fate, because it is about the counting and the management of these votes. So that's going to be really important. And what does it mean that Mercury is at the peak of his paradox, right? Remember the retrograde over here. He's been going forward. When it was new moon, Mercury was way up here. And he came back. This is where he stops on election day. And then the 4th, he starts moving forward again. So this does not bode well for us. Mercury is also very exactly square Saturn, which Saturn will give delays. Saturn puts limitation, and Saturn requires doing things over again, as does Mercury retrograde. Make sure you got it right. So we're not going to know the results of this election. there's going to be some trouble here because there's going to be miscounting or confusion, delays, limitations. I can't even say what they would be. But it's in Libra on the new moon. Meanwhile, on November 3rd, the moon is just 4 degrees off from North Node Rahu in Gemini. So Mercury rules this part of the chart and this part of the chart. Remember Venus was over here? So everyone, here's the will of the people, which we said was the moon. It's public consciousness. Has journeyed from here over to here past these guys, receiving that sextile from Neptune, receiving that raw energy from Mars. Okay, passed through Uranus, which we didn't even talk about. And then is now approaching Rahu. And in Gemini has to do with the message, has to do with writing, with media, with communicating, socializing, social friend groups, networks, all of this kind of thing. So there's going to be a huge everyone on this day is going to be buzzing. If they weren't, because it's just November 3rd, they will be on this day. And squaring Neptune, I mean, wow. Retrograde Neptune is, is there going to be some sort of media release? Something's going to be released, some video, not even released, but just something in social media is going to like burst or happen. And everyone's just going to be buzzing about it. Man. It's going to be helping these guys, though. And there's going to be delays. This is going to result in delays. So that's not great. Could be worse, though. It could be directly opposite Mars, and it is not. Luckily, on November 3rd, Mars is not forming any super strong aspects to anything. It is sextiling the moon, lightly sextiling Rahu, but mostly sextiling the moon, which means that that raw energy is going to work in the favor of our beloved public consciousness. That's going to be very interesting. So the moon continues on her way, and the cycle is complete. Doesn't look too bad, to be honest. Here's where I predict something's going to come up. That's not great. And then gosh, the 10th looks like another difficult day. Right where Venus was, over here in Virgo, it's going to be facing off against Neptune. So some kind of lie or deception, or something's going to be weird or funky on that day, the 10th. And you can see moving now into between the 12th and the 13th, as we're crossing that area with Venus there. There is some hope. This looks looking pretty good. And I think as Venus comes in to that area, for example, on the 16th, she's right there, the 15th and the 16th, I think that we're going to find a resolution that works for everyone. At least that's the ideal, and it's going to be squaring, again, these guys over here, the top of the top. Right, so now we're going to have Venus in the people's corner, so to say. Squaring off against the top of the mountain. And it's like Jupiter is like the ambassador. You know, Jupiter is like, I don't know if he's helping or hurting, man, because he's really just putting a magnifying glass on all of this. I don't know if that's good or bad, but it's squaring off against Venus, and Venus will be in our corner on the 16th. And that, because the moon is right between these two, that's going to come, it's right, sorry. The south node is right at 20 degrees. So it could be like this is an actual compromise where nobody is really thrilled with where we end up, but where we end up is generally a fair shake, according to here, if Venus is doing her thing, which she is. Mars does not have much to say about it, except that it is trining the moon, so it is helping us. So we do have Mars and Venus helping the will of the people, okay? But yeah, it means we're going to have to let go of some stuff and make some compromises and face some difficult truths. We're going to have to face some difficult truths and make some compromises. And she's going to come back in the 19th again. Here, and the Sun strong sextile to all these guys, and the Venus strong sextile. So that's my video. I'm coming up on an hour, so hope that was interesting. Let's see what happens. And just remember, this is a stage. It is a show. Take some deep breaths and, focus on your own show. We set our course based on our divine inner compass, and we all have access to that power within, and we can adjust our sails. Okay, so it's important to pay attention and be aware, and through that awareness, all the shadows dissolve, because our awareness is the light. So go to that quiet place within and set your course so that all your travels are smooth sailing. Okay, and with that, I'll bid you goodbye.